Alright everybody, as we get settled and as the show gets ready to get started, I wanted to break some ice with you all, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to ask each of our panelists a very, very important question. And that question is, DC or Marvel? We're going to start with Casey McGeever, DC or Marvel?
Marvel, of course.
Marvel! Oh, you have to explain your answer, sir.
I grew up with Fantastic Four. You can't just abandon them.
All right. Fantastic Four, that's it. All right, next up we have to ask Chad DeLocke. DC or Marvel?
Marvel.
Another Marvel
although
fan.
in defense, there's a lot of my fellow developers that think that I'm wrong and that DC is the way to go. So we're a mixed team, even though I'm right.
And you know, confidence is everything. And then finally, Nathaniel Downes, DC or Marvel?
I have to go for the curveball and go for Icon. Give me Astro City any day.
Okay. Icon. Can you tell us a bit about Icon and why Icon?
It was Icon was well, there's Icon the comic book series, and then there's Icon the character, so it's always fun. But I love the Astro City type, where they just take the concept and reimagine it without all the legacy that you have with Marvel and DC. The chance to kind of rebirth it in its own way. Beautiful.
All right. Now, of course, as you guys know, no panel is complete without its audience, and so we're going to do a little something. We need you guys to get ready to ask some questions for our panelists. So I want you guys to get used to talking to me a little bit. So the first question I'm going to have to ask you guys is DC or Marvel? We're going to start with DC. By a round of applause, who prefers DC? Oh, we got my boy down there. And 7. Oh, okay. You read DC, but you watch Marvel. All right.
You can all stay.
We get some more claps in there. All right, how about Marvel? Woo. All right. So we clearly have a Marvel audience here. How many guys for Icon?
Just
Own it.
All right, thank you, sir. Brave man back there. Very good. All right, we got a few more minutes to kill here. So, who would win in a fight, Batman or Daredevil?
Batman.
Everybody guys gonna say Batman?
Batman.
Are you sure about that?
Batman.
I mean, because the biggest thing about Batman is that he's stealthy in terms of visual, but not. He's a pretty loud dude. I mean, I think Daredevil could see him. I don't know.
Punisher took out the Daredevil.
No, he's got a point. I have lost this audience. All right, well, there you go. And that's the end of that. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into the introductions, guys. Today, we're going to be talking about superhero games. And not just superhero games, but MMORPGs. City of Heroes is a game that's near and dear to my heart. I was the original beta tester. In fact, my brother and I have worked with Shane Hensley after City of Heroes and his Savage World, Savage Outfitter type program, so we're very familiar with him. And a bit of background about myself. My name is Bicycle Walrus. You might know me from my YouTube channel, DM21 Gaming. The panelists to my left, though, those are the people you came here to see. Those are the people that you care about. So we're going to start with the gentleman immediately to my left, Mr. Casey McGeever for Heroic Games. He is here representing Ship of Heroes.
Okay, so first, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I've got a question for all of you. Quick show of hands. Who played City of Heroes? Okay, that's what I like to see. I did too. I had 60 incarnate characters on 3 servers. And I can tell you, I still think about it, occasionally still dream about it. So, I'm here to tell you a little bit about Ship of Heroes. Then we're going to pass right through. We're going to go to Valiance, then to City of Titans, and then we're going to open for questions, I think, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so in the context here, talking about Ship of Heroes, one of the questions would be for this panel, what made City of Heroes really fun to play? And so we've come through and we've identified 6 things that we think were really great about City of Heroes. And so guess what? If you think, what's going to make Ship of Heroes fun to play? Well, if you guessed those 6 things, you're a good guesser. So I'm just going to very quickly talk about them. But for us, the positive community is a critical thing. We felt that in City of Heroes, there really was a positive community, and some of that's been lost in modern gaming. We want to bring that back. So that is number 1 item for us, is bring back that positive community. Another item, not just the Trinity. So we're creating a game in which there are a large number of new power sets, new powers, new archetypes. It's different. But if you played City of Heroes and liked it, we think you'll like this game. It is a new game. Powerful customization for your character. So literally our aspiration is every character in the game should look different, and every character's powers should be different, because that difference allows you to customize your character not just in how it looks, but customize it for your play style. Depth of story and setting, new dangerous enemies you've never seen before. So I love this picture because we made this gal and we're just excited. This is a good example of our art style. Okay, teaming. So we'll have teams going up to 10, but quite frankly, I love teams. I'm a teaming kind of guy, but most of the time I actually played solo. I recognize that. I remember my team games a lot more than I remember solo, but I was playing solo, so it has to be fun for both. And superheroes. I mean, really, we're here because we want to put on the cape and the mask, right? Am I right? Could I see a show of hands? Who wants the cape and the mask? Our audience, no capes? Okay.
No, capes are dangerous.
I got
Capes
you.
are dangerous, yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
So, Ship of Heroes is a new game, and I'm going to just talk very briefly and say what makes it new. Well, we're building it in the Unreal Engine. Really a very exciting graphical engine, larger teams, new game mechanics. You're seeing a little picture there of a ranged tank who's using a weapon. One of his powers provides a hold. This kind of mixing and matching, very different, and actually very exciting. And unique classes. For those of you who haven't visited our website, you'll notice we're highly focused on getting this game done. We are very structured. So we have a milestone chart. This is our second one. This 8-month chart followed the 6-month chart. We have not missed a milestone. We're very structured in getting things done on time. So we started about 17 months ago. There were 2 of us. Today there are about 15 of us. So, and actually, as you'll see, I need to hire at least one more guy to help me with sound effects. This is a pre-alpha game, but our team's growing. We have about 5 volunteers, and the other 10 are all professional video game producers of various kinds, artists, coders, professionals in the trade. And finally, I've got a few announcements. So, just in case you haven't been following us, our first alpha activity comes on at the end of this month, where we're going to allow some of our community to start using the character creator, make characters, and post them up on our forums. At the end of this year, about 16 weeks from now, we're going to test our combat system by bringing small teams in and letting them run through the city and kill as many enemies as they can find. So if you're wondering, how are we going to do that? Well, I and our lead developer, we're going to form teams and take them through. Why will we do it that way? Because people will tell us stuff like, this is completely dumb. And we'll hear it. I just want to let you know that. So that's how we're getting our feedback, is from people like you. So raid testing begins second quarter next year, probably in June. And we think raiding, invasions, raiding other places, big activities, really important. 50 players fighting 60, 80 enemies, this kind of thing. We want to build to that. We think that's a really important piece of the game. Beta begins in December of next year. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch over, show you a very quick introductory video, kind of an overview. You'll see a character be created. You'll see that character fly through the city, and you'll see a quick combat scenario. And that, of course, rests on the assumption that I can actually get my computer to play that for you. But that is the intent.
It just might not sound.
We'll see.
I think we had sound before. We should be good this time.
We're testing.
Crossing fingers.
Always testing.
Okay. So logging in, creating a new character.
Now, of course, power sets in the future, correct?
Correct. We're going to launch with 5 primary and 5 secondary for every archetype.
Fantastic. what about body types? Are we seeing more body styles as well?
Right now we have a male, which is what's being created here. We have female, and we have a really big guy. And this particular character was selected because this is one of our devs making a friend of his. Can you tell we're a small team? We have over 400 morphs you can apply to every character. We also are working on a way to make the morphs a little more intuitive, a little faster than the sliders. It is easy to spend a day doing that.
Okay.
You're in Apotheosis City. One of the things we're doing is installing some custom collision models on the buildings. So you can do stuff like this. The arch here is in the center of the city. That's a cameo for one of our signature heroes, their sword blossom.
That look like Green Lantern.
Green Pants Man.
Oh, Green Pants Man, good point. Yeah.
Social media king.
Gotcha.
It's important not to take yourself too seriously.
Promise you there will be Green Pants Man 32 on launch day.
So you get a good sense for the city.
Remind us what power sets that Hero has.
Our power has a restorative nanite secondary and a lightning blast.
All right. Does this character represent a level 1 character or a higher level one?
It would be about level 10 or 12 here.
Level 10 or 12? Okay.
Yes.
Out of what?
Well, ultimately, I'm not sure we're going to have a level cap. We'll start with 20 or 30, somewhere in there. Thank you. So, that ship of heroes, hold your questions because we got two more.
Well,
great
I'm
games
going to
talk
have,
about.
as we talked before, I got two questions for you. And after every one of these guys, I'm going to ask them two questions of my own just to kind of fill in any holes that there might be. And so the first question I have for you is sort of a difficult one, but I'm going to finish off with a better one, and I promise. The first question is, I'm sure some of you might have known about Ship of Heroes being on Kickstarter at one point. I want to give you an opportunity to kind of explain your new financing and financial model since the Kickstarter didn't go through.
Sure, we did a Kickstarter, and we pulled it after a couple days because we realized it wasn't going to work. That's on me. I'm the CEO. We went too soon. So we went too soon. I don't know that we're going to go to another crowdfund. I never say never, but not really in the immediate plan. But we do take donations on the website. So we've been getting donations from people. We need those donations. They're very useful, but we know we're going to get to beta. Donations, what they do for us, they give us more content at launch. That's what it's all about. You're making a better game. So we appreciate that. That's my shameless plug for Give Me Money, please.
All right, and then my second question is obviously the setting of Ship of Heroes is incredibly unique and very, very different. It doesn't take place on Earth, even though it looked like it did. Can you take the time to explain what the ship in Ship of Heroes is?
Sure. So it's the 25th century. Mankind's moved off of Earth. Earth is still alive and kicking. Everything's good here, so you don't need to sell anything. But big ships traveling, small ships traveling in a human federation of planets, colonies, space stations, mining colonies, and this ship is the example of the biggest ship humanity has. It's one of the hero ships. It is a nation in space. It's more than 20 miles long. It has a population of millions. People are born, live, and die there naturally. It moves from planet to planet. As it makes planetfall, people have adventures. Heroes leave the ship. So there are adventures on the ship. There are adventures off the ship. So the expansion potential for the game is enormous, and that's deliberate. We want to create a game where people can play for years and years and years with new content.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on now to Chad DeLocke of Silverhelm Studios. He's going to be talking about Valiance. I think I did it.
That's good.
All right.
Valiance Online.
I was
Hey
saying
guys,
it
how's
wrong
it
the whole
going?
time.
For everybody that decided either you had this was the best show that you wanted to wait and see, or for people who were bored and waiting for something to open later, still welcome. Thank you so much for coming. On behalf of Silverhelm Studios, thanks to all of our donators. Any donators in the audience from Silverhelm? 1, 2, myself, 3, and streaming live on Twitch. We had a lot of support for that, so shout out to those. I am Chad DeLocke. I am the Chief Operations Officer for Silverhelm Studios. I'm also the Content Director and the Art Director for Valiance Online. I want to talk to you specifically about 3 different areas tonight about our game. One is the topic of our origins and the story and the lore, something that's very near and dear and kind of defines the premise behind why you would want to sit there and spend hours, days, or years of your life playing another superhero MMO. Next, I'm going to talk about where we've come from developmentally and where we are today, what we have as our existing game and our donator release of the alpha that's online now. And then finally, I'm going to talk about all the exciting stuff that we're looking to release to have for the finished version of the game once it comes out. So the game takes place in the city of San Silo in the year 2103. Now, the important thing about this is we asked ourselves, conceptually wise, how do we want to go about this? Do we want to make a fictitious world? Do we want to make a alternate reality? There's so many different superhero ways that you could go about doing this. And what we decided was to keep it in the realm of the real. So within our timeline, everything that happens in our real world, so the events of World War II, the Vietnam War, 9/11, all those things really happened in this game. So when we refer to something historically, it's going to have its anchors rooted into those events for it. And that also helped us pay forward to start conceptualizing what would be the natural evolution of the timeline of Earth. What would we expect to see for that? If anybody's ever seen the game or you've been online for it, it is a very utopian, futuristic city, nice, lush green gardens. You see the beautiful high-tech buildings out there. It looks very futuristic, but to get to that point from where we are today sitting here at PAX, it was a bit of a journey, and that's kind of the story that I want to explain to you. So the first question is, how long is the timeline? We went back 83 years from where the launch is, and if you kind of put that into perspective from today, you go back, that's the 1930s. So if you think of what's happened to mankind from the 1930s, you've barely got airplanes, you've barely got cars, you've got power, you've got the evolution of music, entertainment that's starting on the cusp of going somewhere up until today, and now we've got the World Wide Web. That span of technology, of knowledge, of breadth of diversity, what mankind has evolved through, we're trying to capture that and pay that forward another. But even more so is you can't have a direct change that affects our timeline without having something as these drastic evolution of conflict, of having where it came from. Because everybody knows if you say Superman and Lex Luthor, just those 2 names by itself speaks to you about an entire lineage of their history. You don't even have to go much more into that, but you know it, right? It goes so far back you can't even begin to touch on it. And so we needed to make those milestones within our own game history so that when you see the character Legacy, that's the character that I'm actually, that's my moniker in the game. When you see Legacy flying around the city, you're going to be able to find out the entire history about why he started it all, why he's got such a chip on his shoulders. Okay, so I want to give you a brief rundown. I wrote so much stuff here, but I'm going to save you most of that and just kind of hit the highlights of it. So in 2030 is when we start this timeline off. We had to pick a starting point somewhere. So in 2030, Legacy comes to Earth. He's stranded here by a cosmic event that ends up shunting him to here. And because of his presence, that's the catalyst that makes the giant boom into the hyper and the superhuman evolution. The difference between that is a hyperhuman in our game is somebody that is altered genetically, biogenetically. Serum, which you'll learn is sequence 22. That's the big buzz. You'll see billboards in the city of sequence 22. Or they are and born with a person with natural abilities. Now that is not to say that we don't have cybernetic people. We've got plenty of Batman people. We've got vigilantes, people of martial arts, all sorts of modifications. But with the relevance of the timeline, that was the starting point for that, and what also shaped the events for it. So going forward, it led into a Cold War, and you see the history of the world. You got the bow and arrow first, you're going to win a war. You get black powder first, you're going to win a war. You get a tank, you get a steel ship, okay? As mankind evolved through warfare, the person that had the biggest gun or had the biggest bomb was the person that was going to win that, okay? So this is what happens within the society. Now we've got people that are fighting for, in this instance, America. They've got superhuman powers. Well, the villains are going to pop up because not everybody does good things with powers, okay? And when the villains pop up, now you've got an escalation of that force to have an equal reaction for it or to be able to stop it. So once a tri-axis power, in this instance it's Russia, China, and North Korea, end up getting their hands on a series of villains, and they start pitting those for their own political aims and goals, well, now we've got to up the ante for that. And with that spurns the beginning of the tension that happens politically and also within the timeline of the story. So you fast forward, Goliath is the founding villain entity, and the 12 is the hero group that starts way back. And if you think about those, that's the retro DC Justice League, that's the retro Avengers for things. But Goliath will eventually become Leviathan, and Leviathan is the villain organization that exists within the game, whereas Valor is the superhero group that emerges at the same time. And again, that continually growing tension spurns from, with more villains comes a response for that. And so now you have institutions. Now you've got organizations with bases and homes, organizations that go and act independently of the law. And that's where the turmoil of this really starts, and it builds to an apex, and I'll get there quickly. So with the villains coming and doing all that they want to do and hurting the world and doing what they have with their villainous means and all of the incidents that happen in between to stop them, well, now people are starting to say we're caught in the middle of this. Humanity is caught in the middle of this giant strife that keeps going back and forth and devastating cities and rainforests and all that good stuff. So they start to fear what they can't control. And because they have control measures in place, control for them is an illusion, but they have to do something to try and keep control of what the heroes are doing. As that's going, instant laws that hold the powers or the supers accountable for their action starts to build that tension now, where it isn't just good versus evil. Now it's humanity versus those who have gifts or powers or different abilities. We're going to introduce an alien war. There's an intergalactic war that happens about 2075. So this is roughly 40 some years before the game starts. And we feel that there was a natural occurrence where, by having one as the beginning point for where the powers would originate, but also having that later as there's an escalation of force that's noticed galactically for that. And that's going to make its way and just spill over onto Earth for that. That also leads to the ability for you as players to be able to have alien characters. The natural progression, of course, now is they come, we start making amicable means for them, integrate into society, natural resources are traded for technology, and you've got that sudden boom. Nuclear power turns into quantum. You've got black matter. You've got all these superpower cells that just can't be done. That's where the laser guns come from. That's where the super cybernetics and all these nanites, all that evolution comes from that influence of their society into what we've got on Earth. But even more so is now you've got aliens, hypers, and supers as that out of balance sort of thing against humanity. That builds tension even more. Mankind tries to implement more of these safe zones, and they eventually come up with the HARA, or what we have is the Hero and Alien Registration Act. That's where you are now out of control. We have to have some means to make you accountable for what you're going to do, put you in place, and then, of course, then there's the resistance and the tension. Everybody fights back against this, and it builds to what we're having as the pivotal event in the entire timeline, which is the superhero uprising. Mankind says, we can't take this anymore, we're going to nuke them. Okay, I'm giving you the speed dial version of this. They decide that they're going to take these zones where it's predominantly heavy saturations of aliens, hypers, and supers, and they say we're going to fix the problem with one fell swoop. Majority 55 votes to 45 at the United Nations, and they push the button. Heroes figure out that this is not the way to go. They stop it, put all the warheads into space, because that's the only relative place that you want to have nuclear warheads flying aimlessly out there into the ether. And that causes a backlash because you tried to take me out, well, now we're going to try and take you out. And Leviathan, that entity organization we have, decides to make an example out of the city of San Diego. Don't worry, Comic-Con is still there in our game. Comic-Con is still there. I got some scared looks out there. So with the uprising, they trick a hero whose power is electric manipulation, and they trick her instead of being able to defuse what they thought was a weapon of mass destruction or a bomb, and it actually channels her to pull in surges of energies along the entire western seaboard, and she detonates. Takes out the entire city. 10 miles of the city are gone, 20 miles inland from the tsunami, from the backwash of that, and that decimates what's left over, and that is the rebuilding point for not only the culture of the laws and how the world looks at heroes, but it's also where they're going to rebuild the city to make an example of what was there before. So this institutes the United Government of Earth. Everybody asks about the policies for that. Mankind says, you know, we can't live in fear anymore, let's bring it in and incorporate it. You've got aliens, you've got a representative from every country, you've got people with superpowers, all these institutions now together for the common goal for that, with one big goal in mind, and that is to make, prevent the instances of the uprising from happening again, and to make more humane decisions without being as reflexive. So where does that put the world? Okay, well, now you've got all this great technology. I mentioned the utopian instance for it. You've got these nanites, and within the span of 4 years, they're actually able to rebuild the city. Superheroes, the best thing you'd want to see, right? Superheroes flying in with giant truckloads of bricks and stuff, and they rebuild everything up, and it makes the city of the future. And that's what San Cielo is meant to be. San Cielo is built on a horrible event that taught mankind the lesson about what it was, and that evolution into how the conflict is now dealt with and how the world sees supers, hypers, and aliens is now what you walk into when you are in the game. You are now a member of that society with the legacy of all of that history that's there, and that kind of sculpts what's there. And we put this into all the factoring with the lore. When you're reading stories, when you're reading the mission sets that's going to be there, you'll read something, and the history of that is going to have something on a wiki that's going to pop up on our website, and there's going to be pages and pages of what that event is going to be. You hear intergalactic war, and now you know what that means. So it was very, very important for us to have a foundation and a structure that was built on a logical procession of time, and to give you something of knowing what the world is. Because everybody's going to walk into the game, they're going to pick up a controller, a mouse, or keyboard, and they're going to start running around. They're like, why should I care about the city? Why should I care about the good guys who are over here and the bad guys who are over there? Well, there's a reason why they're there, and that choice is something that you're going to be knowledgeable of. So with the lore put aside, and thank you, I beg your patience on this. So
Try not to interrupt you. But we're running against time here.
I'm sorry about that. So let me talk about what we actually have for the game. This is just a list. I'm going to go through these things so you guys understand the playability of what the game is capable of, and then I'm going to roll right into where we're going. So right now, Valiance was created in 2013. That's when we first came up with the idea for doing this. And now, within the last 2 years, we have leaped forward to be able to make all the progress that we've had exponentially. And as mentioned before by Casey, those donors that we have that come in, we had a failed Kickstarter as well. It wasn't the right time to put our game out, but by going independently and having that through our website, it is the fans that have helped us develop and build that game. Since January of 2016, we've raised nearly $30,000 for that, 450 donors that are there. We call them our donators, which is a real word. I looked that up. And every penny of that's been going to music, it's been going to art, it's been going to development, to programming, to websites, everything that's there. It doesn't come to pay our paychecks. Okay, everybody in our team has got day jobs. That money just goes right into building the game and to be able to facilitate more of that. We currently have 3 servers running internally for that, one for testing the to test the game on, one that's an external that you as the players are going to be able to work on, and then another one that is running different mechanics for that, so we can have a continuity running at all times. The game is currently being built. We're using the Unity 2017 engine. It seems to be working really well for us. Don't have any problems We are releasing patch updates for the investor alpha or the donor alpha that's out 2 to 3 times a month, and we usually have one giant patch that we put up. So there's always a flow of content that's coming. We're listening to the bug reports, we're listening to the fans, what they find. We've got an instantaneous roll around and a fix for hopefully most of them. It's not a
And a nice attempt to try to button up here. I got one question for you.
Sure.
And that question would be, you mentioned the Investors Alpha.
Yep.
What can prospective investors, people who might be interested in jumping into a City of Heroes-like game now, expect from your Investors Alpha? What's currently in there? And if you can keep that to like 1 or 2 minutes.
Sure. We've got character customizations. It's already up and running. We've got a limited amount of customizations that are there. The cool thing we like to push is our asymmetrical character customization. So if you decide you want to make a cybernetic character, you can have a robot arm and a human arm. You can have a robot leg and a human leg. You can switch them out, and then you can customize all the assets of that. We have currently 11 power archetypes that are generic and basic power sets that are going to help you build that character. Moving forward, we're going to expand that out. So the indifferent number of combinations that you can put together of those is based more off of what you can imagine, not necessarily saying, okay, you're a lightning guy. There's a whole element to build on that, and we make more every day. We've got more than 30 unique NPC-based missions, mid, low, and high-level mobs that are in the playable version right now. Characters can get up to a level cap of 30. The releasable game's going to have a level cap of 50. Ability powers that are leveling via trainers, a large explorable city that we have, functioning inventory, character enhancements, and just tons of stuff that you get in, and it's already there, able to play, to click up and do. You walk down the street, you punch somebody in the face, you loot the body, and you go on to your mission.
And how much does an investor need to invest in order to gain access to that alpha?
Right now, the base investment we have is a $25 investor. That'll get you into the playable version of the game now, and we've got tiered rewards at $25, so you also get in-game content as we're developing it to thank everybody for it.
Will they give you a full game at release?
At $25 a person, most likely not.
Okay.
What we're looking to do, we've got other investment possibilities that we're looking at, because the scope of it is just so massive, it doesn't happen in that instance. But we are continuing to develop so that we have a external release via Steam that's going to be coming up at the end of this year, and that's going to be very comparable to what we already have for that. We're building the actual city that players are going to have right now. It's kind of a side part of the city that you'll get to later. And we're also working to have the beta as in August 2019 release for that, and a full game release by March of 2020.
All right.
Everything going well, we can reach those goals.
We're going to have to quickly move on to Nathaniel Downes of Missing Worlds Media, here representing his game, City of Titans. Sir, tell us what you got.
Hello, everyone. Now, you'll notice I do not have a computer in front of me because I had the choice of having a nice visual display or the stream. And honestly, I'd rather allow this to be shared amongst more people. So, I get to now take it all from here. Now, everybody in this room knows where we were 5 years ago. 5 years ago, 5 years and 2 days ago, I was sitting in a chat room on IRC with 6 other people saying, well, they're taking away the game we were playing. What can we do? Well, one person on the old COH forums named Shockwave had come up with a name for the idea called Plan Z. Replace the game. Nobody in the room had ever made a video game before. I worked in insurance, worked for Dell for years. Actually, one of my former coworkers sitting right over there. Now, we've had people that were story writers, people that were artists, and we're going, well, maybe we can do this. We started putting together a plan. About a year later, we presented our plan on Kickstarter. We had a successful Kickstarter, raised for almost twice what we asked for. And that's when everything starts hitting the pavement, when you start getting the pressure on you. We've had to switch engines from Unreal 3 to Unreal 4. We were one of the first adopters of Unreal 4. We developed a gaming world based on modern times instead of evolving forward. That means we had to develop a past history to explain that world. It got very interesting. We've pioneered server technologies. We have a customized version of the Unreal Engine we have to use for our servers. And we are currently in a nice, we developed everything in pieces. So we got quest systems being developed independently. We got the power system being developed independently, the character system developed independently. We're now in the point where we're integrating these systems into a single playable pre-alpha, which I've been actually using on our Twitch stream every week for the past 2 months now. We should have a solid pre-alpha by the end of the year, potentially a full alpha if we get the quest system integrated, because that's going to be a headache. Just being honest. When we sat down and came up with our ideas, though, we worked on the premise of what did we ever want? What did we want from a game in the future? Things we decided we didn't want. We didn't want an action combat system. We wanted something that was still tab targeting, but a little more flexible. We've got a nice combat system as a result. We wanted to, instead of having 18 power sets that were effectively the same flavor vanilla with extra sprinkles on different colors, we went and came up with, okay, instead being able to customize it the way you want. So instead of having if you ever actually broke it down, you had katana set and you had broadsword set that were functionally the same sets, just with different animations. We have one set. You can pick a broadsword characterization for it. You can pick a katana animation for it. You can pick fists for it. Or as we, love joking around, you can pick a chainsaw for it if you really wanted to. We've shown off a few weeks ago one of our controller animation sets that instead of the guy standing there holding his head in pain or being tormented by ghosts, it's the guy's held in place by the fact he's stuck dancing. Dance gun for the win. We built their system to be incredibly flexible. So we don't have one big meta plot. Instead, we have story arcs, storylines that go from 0 all the way to 50. And you can flip between them as you progress, so it ends up with the story being the way you want it. So you may want your character to forever be the guy fighting in the streets, or you might want to be the guy that goes into epic space combat eventually in the future. You can switch between them. You could have the space combat guy that ends up fighting in the streets at the end of his career. You could have the mystical knight that ends up working for the police. And that's the way we want to do it. We wanted to basically take all these powers, all this capability, and put it in the player's hands. Been a lot of work. We are doing it all volunteer, doing it all part-time. We used our Kickstarter funds to buy the equipment so that way we could actually pull it off. We've got the license to Unreal. We ended up buying software for everybody, buying some hardware, and paying for the servers to run it all. Taken us a lot longer than we expected to get to this point, but I'm pretty happy we got here. If you want to know our history, what we came up with was from a story standpoint, the laziest origin possible for heroes. They've always been there. Instead of a big event or a mystical box that gets opened, instead there've always been these people that did something strange. But the communication between areas wasn't there, so they ended up being considered folklore or urban legend. So in our world, Pecos Bill was a real person somewhere. Same with Paul Bunyan. We have real people. Theodore Roosevelt got shot in the chest right before a speech, slugged the guy, knocked him out, got up there and gave his speech. And the real world is because it shot his speech, which was a substantial piece of paper in his pocket. But in our case, no, he was just one of the special people, one of the people that society is called Titans, hence the game's name. We set it in a modern urban city on the northern side of New England. If you actually look on a real world map, it's around where Gloucester, Massachusetts is. We picked it because it's an area that is complete. If you've ever been there in the real world, it's a marsh. Nobody lives there. Nobody cares about it. It is the. So we're like, okay, we'll put it here. We used real world maps to develop it. We used actual people. 2 of our volunteers are civil engineers. They developed the street maps to it. And I've had to rebuild those a couple times because it didn't work on, yeah. I ended up working on the map team for the most part, so I've now rebuilt the city. I'm currently on version 6 of the city. But we doing this because we love playing games. We love the game we came from, and we want to make the game that we want to play. So we keep trudging along. We have plans on offering a second chance to the Kickstarter for everybody that missed, mainly because we've gotten so many requests for it over the past several years that it's like, okay, fine, we'll do it to get it out of the way. It's probably going to be happening later this year. We have plans on having our backer pre-alpha later this year. Honestly, if we had a few more systems integrated, we could do it probably in the next few weeks, but they're not integrated yet. So I'm not gonna sit here and give you a given timeline because we've had times when we've got stuff we sat down and the next day we got it working, and sometimes it's taken us, we began integrating that in March. Yeah. We're making the game that we wanted to play, that a lot of you have told us that you want to play. And I made a lot of good friends doing this. Made a lot of really great people. I met, thanks to our development, we ended up meeting the people from, Silverhelm and Heroic Games, great people. I've met game developers on games that 5 years ago, I'd have been sitting here starstruck. And if you want a bit of irony, 7 years ago, today, I was sitting in the same room, about 8 rows back on the center column. And Matt Miller and Warwich were sitting up here discussing the upcoming release of Rogue, of City of Heroes going Rogue. And the next year, it was another panel, this room again, talking about freedom. Now, the following year, 2012, was the first PAX I never attended. I've refused to miss a PAX since.
Right.
It's a bit weird sitting in this room right now, this is the spot where Warwich was sitting. It's a little weird. But ultimately, I'm doing it because we're doing it, everybody at Missing Worlds Media, because we want to see all of you, including the people on the Twitch stream and people that'll tune in later. We want to see everybody playing again. Everybody sitting up there, super jump, teleport, running, super speed, and of course the good old fly. And a couple other neat little things we've added in since. But we're doing it all for you.
All right. I have a couple questions for you before we take it to the audience. The first question would be, you received an initial seed funding of about $650,000,
Right.
which was twice what you guys were asking. Were you able to obtain any additional investments to maybe bring some of those developers on full-time to try to help secure the full release of City of Titans any sooner, or are there any plans to do that?
That's what we're planning on doing with the second chance. Anything for that's going to be going to converting people to full-time.
Okay.
We haven't done it till now for the simple fact that we wanted to have something that we could actually bring and show and put people into and play before we did that.
Okay.
Because it would feel bad, honestly, I'd feel bad just asking for it again when we haven't.
It was the reason why I was asking if you were potentially interested in using investor funding with your initial seed.
We've talked to investors, but we found that if we go with it too early,
Sure.
they ask for way too much they ask for a lot more, and we want to have, by having something produced, we can get it done better terms for us.
Okay. All right, and then my second question is, you spoke about a lot of assets, cities and streets being built, etc. Where's a good place for everybody to take a look at all that's been done since 5 years ago when the Kickstarter was completed?
On our Twitch stream and on our YouTube channel, plus we do a weekly update.
Okay.
Honestly, we have several months worth of update content that we just need to sit down and get out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's rather, well, honestly, kind of embarrassing how much stuff we've got sitting in the bullpen that's like, okay, we got an augment update, we got to finish writing. Oh, okay, have you finished it? Well, no, I've been too busy on this. Because the best people for it are our developers, and between writing and developing, what would they rather be doing?
All right.
On the other hand, our lore writers will write up. They love their content, and well, they should be. We have, I think I checked, and we had something on the order of 5 complete level 1 to 30 quest lines complete, plus side quests and write-ups from all the villains and the enemies and the heroes and every character. 52 factions. It was like mind-blowing how many people they'd written up.
I want to go ahead and step down to the audience. You can finish your thought. I want to grab that microphone. We're going to start taking questions from the audience. So I'll go ahead and just run the microphone to you guys. Feel free to finish your thoughts there. Are you good? Assuming he's good. All right, go ahead and raise your hand, guys. If you have a question for any of our panelists. And of course, please try to phrase the question in a way where all of our panelists can answer. I'll go to you, sir, since you so corrected me about my, I want to win you back. So there you go.
All right, I appreciate that. First of all, I just want to comment a quick thing on Valiance. I love the fact you have so much backstory on that. I really appreciate that as a gamer. But in City of Heroes, one of the things I appreciated the most was their loot system. The fact that you got the power upgrades as loot, and instead of having to search bodies and juggle all your inventory. I was wondering if any of you are planning on doing something like that in your game.
Yes.
Sure, yes. One of the things I liked about that system was you simply defeated the enemy, the stuff went into your bags, and you didn't have to rifle the body looking for stuff. Yes, we'll be doing that as well.
Currently for the alpha that we've got, you still have to loot the bodies, but we're working with a couple of different venues that has the inclusion of pets that are going to be able to do the looting for you, being able to do it so you can selectively take what's there, or other ideas that we still have coming in.
Yeah, we've done the auto loot system as well, just like that. We call the ability to change your power augments, and it works out pretty well. Plus, on our augments, you can refine them on top of that. So, and that's one of the updates that we really got to get to the door.
All right,
No pressure,
thanks for
Bill.
questions. I'm going to go to this lady right here in front. Or I see you guys back there. I'm going to come that way here in a bit.
So one of the things that I appreciated about City of Heroes, and it tends to be a thing that I dislike about MMOs, is that in City of Heroes, any character that you played had a completely different mission progression than someone else, because you had your contacts and they sent you to other contacts, and you sort of could choose your own route through that. And then if you created another character and played through it, you weren't playing the same set of missions, you weren't fighting the same set of baddies. You know, it was a unique experience every time, to the extent that, you know, playing a game with the same mechanics can be. Whereas with most MMORPGs, you start a game and then like maybe there's some slight variance, but for the most part, it's like, okay, well, I wanted to try this other class, now I have to slog through all of the same stuff all over again. And so I was just wondering if you have any plans to have a similar system, and also because to me, the journey there is way more important than the in-game content. I'm a complete alt monkey, so I've only gotten to level cap in one game, which was Guild Wars 2, and that was an accident. That was an event that they had that gave ridiculous amounts of experience, and I went from like level, like I just went like at least 20 levels within that entire event. So.
And if I can maybe try to, correct me if I'm wrong here, she's discussing a hero's journey. Every hero has a different journey. And of course, back when City of Heroes was a thing, it was very difficult to program and code in. How are you guys going to make the hero's journey unique for every attempt, or can you? Is that something that's possible? That's
That
good?
was an excellent
All right, there we go. We got there.
Okay, it looks like I'm nominated. So
You just get to go first.
in our system, there'll be many different paths forward. So you're not on rails. So if I could use an example, maybe you've played Star Wars: The Old Republic. You're strictly on rails. You're going through a set of missions. Every Jedi goes through the same missions. Every Sith sorcerer goes through the same missions. We completely reject that. You could actually do no missions and just street sweep and pick up missions at level 20 and start doing them. Or if you really wanted to, street sweep your way to the end. For us, it's about the journey. It's about whatever you want to do. There will always be more contacts and more missions than you could do as a single player. So you're always going to be picking and choosing, this one looks fun, that doesn't sound that interesting, right? Every path will be unique.
For Valiance Online, we're making a set series of missions that players can do. We took this and kind of divided it in two different pieces. You have the RPG people that do that character immersion. They want to be that character. They want to live through it. They talk with the person. They rescue the cat out of the tree. And then you have the people that are grind fest. They just want to get in. They want to get to a higher level so they can have that power set and just blow things up. And so with the diversity of this, we have a series of missions that is the main storyline that follows it to a series of endgame content. We have side missions that are there along the ways that you won't even know that they're quest givers until you walk up to somebody and it says talk, and you talk to them. We don't need to spoon feed people, hey, I've got a thing on my head. We want to make people go out and explore that world. And then we have what we're calling as our raid system, which is a series of very difficult, heavily stacked with enemies. You get a group of 3, 5, 10, 20 people. You go down into the sewer and you just annihilate everything that's down there, and you pop up on the other side of 10th level while there's another person doing all the missions above ground that follows the storyline. So it's more of a choice based on what the gamer wants to do. And one other element that we're putting in there too is with our alignment system that we're working on. If you want to be a hero, the responses that you're going to have based on those missions, you can go, oh my gosh, somebody stole my purse. Please go get it back from me. You can keep the purse. You can sell it, hawk the money, and walk away and say, oops, I wasn't able to get it in time. That goes into your alignment system, and that's going to determine what's going to be available for
I
you.
do have to remind you, we are down to 13 minutes and we have a lot of questions.
That's it.
Well, as I mentioned, we're having several paths initially, plus we're having side quests, and on top of that, we also have what we call the tip system, allowing people to effectively craft their own missions. Kind of a not quite architect level where you're doing everything, but where you're picking up clues from the street and figuring out, it's like, okay, I've got bloody bandages from this hospital, I've seen a bunch of slumbering dealing around the old spooky mill, and I've got there was a missing bank shipment. Aha! I tracked the bank shipment to that old hospital that the slumbering were dealing with. Congratulations, you just made yourself a mission. You can mix and match as you wish to go. We actually have built into the storylines that they can actually spawn a story. You can find yourself in the middle of a storyline from a tip mission by accident, on purpose. It's kind of neat. So you can spawn, create. We're starting with 4 storylines, and we're going to keep adding more over time as well.
Does a player pick the 4 storylines, which one they do, or is it based on choices and decisions they make?
Yes, in both cases.
Okay.
So you can skip all of them. You can do all of them as well. You can mix and match, go between them, because we want to make it so people jump and tweak and make their own quest, their own hero's journey.
All right, go ahead and raise your hands. All right, going over to the original 1981. And I see you and you. All right.
So I think there's a general agreement that community is one of the things that made City of Heroes amazing. I made a lot of friends playing in City of Heroes, and as my first MMO, it spoiled me for all other MMOs because you go in and realize that a lot of their communities are just toxic. As a professional in the industry, one thing a pattern that I see repeatedly is that community gets short shrift by management that really isn't willing to put in the effort, isn't willing to put in the thought, and isn't willing to spend the money. Can you share one or more concrete steps that you've taken or plan to take in order to try to recapture the City of Heroes style of community?
Sure, I'll start off. 24/7 chat moderation, 2 levels of it. Volunteers as a first, professionals above that. That's an obvious thing to have. Another thing is you'll have a reputation system. So if you're really just behaving badly pretty regularly, it will become officially tracked and known. You can be silenced if you're really just letting loose and chat. Do it too many times, we will ban you. Just going to be blunt and say, we've already made the call. We'd rather be a smaller game with a more positive community than a bigger game with a toxic one. Just flat out. I know that sounds a little aggressive, but we made that call. That was one of the originating impulses for Ship of Heroes.
Just need to remind our panel we have 9 minutes left and 3 more questions to answer, so please keep them succinct.
For ours, most of our community right now is online, so we've got web moderation that allows people to join in with it. We've got people that are focusing on the content of the game, so travel powers don't start until level 14. It means when you're running around, you got to have somebody hopefully with you that's going to help you out because it isn't always as easy to get there. So we encourage a lot of the teaming up and making those first-hand relationships as soon as you hit the streets.
Well, we've been actually dealing with community moderation for several years now. We've got a good team, which is a nice core to build off of. They have been coming up with nice guidelines, nice profiles. We've been doing volunteers from our community, which have been acting as a first tier before it gets to our moderators. Beyond that, it's like I can't really add much more to what we have said already.
Just a quick follow-up to that. How large is the development or moderation team? Can you give a number?
We have 7 people, I think, in total.
Just a quick question for the 2 gentlemen on the end here. Any concerns with NCSoft coming after you for IP infringement using the terms of Heroes or City of and creating a superheroes game?
We've run it. We have a good lawyer. We checked with them first, and honestly, if that does become an issue, we do have a backup name. So. And we've actually mentioned it a couple times on forum posts and things like that. So,
is it NCSoft who owns it, or the creator Shane Hensley who owns the name or the title, the IP, the rights to the name?
The name is owned by NCSoft as far as I've been able to ever see.
Okay.
But that's entirely, I don't know. And again,
Not worried.
yeah. And considering how many other games have City of, like City of Steam, City of Ember. And of course, we've had the Arrow episode, City of Heroes.
There you go.
City of Heroes was the first MMO I ever loved. What's the killer app or feature that's going to convince me to cheat on my wife?
All right, so killer feature that will separate your game from City of Heroes. What are you doing new or different?
I'm going to say positive community and teaming, both of which were in City of Heroes. We don't need to do something different. We need to do something again.
For us, we feel the innovativeness of being able to select what you want your hero to be from scratch, and then being able to also throw your own story. You get to write your own story and then go around and look at other players and see what they made up. It's not based on a pattern or cookie cutter system, and that spills over into the gameplay as far as how you want to be. You don't have to be a hero or a villain. You can be a dark vigilante. It's what you want, and then being able to replicate that again to make 5 10 heroes that you've got in your inventory?
What we ended up doing was sitting there and going, okay, what could we have had if we could have gotten anything out of City of Heroes? And we all said more customization. So just taking what's already there and turning it up to 11. Why not just make 10 louder? But it's 11.
All right, our last question.
Hi, thanks. Just want to say thank you very much for all three of you coming out and sharing your vision with us. That's great. Appreciate it. My question for you is, one of the things that made City of Heroes, to me, one of the best MMOs I've ever played is the sidekick and then later the exemplar system. Very frequently you find groups of people who will play at different speeds, and the ability to either step down or step up so that you can continue to play with your friends regardless of individual progression is paramount. Can you explain briefly how or if your systems will include that? Thank you.
We do plan to do something comparable to that in Ship of Heroes. You need to be able to play with your friends.
As the content, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. I don't know that information. My brother is at the back, and he's got cards that have all of our social media links to it, and you can, of course, we'll find that question and post it out to the forums. That's a great question. Thank you.
The way we've set it up is that when you join a team, it sets everybody to that team level. It makes the most sense. It simplifies things. I remember the early days where it's like, okay, it's like, we want to run this. I've only got 3 49s. We need a 4th in order to run with everybody. Oh no, does anybody have another 40? Yeah. Anybody else have another? I got a 36, that won't work. Yeah. I was the 36 half the time, I swear. But it's like, we've figured out it's just, that works. It's like, once you get, it's like, okay, everybody's teaming. Everybody goes to the team mission level and sets it from there.
All right, we have about 3 minutes left, which means each of you have about a minute to close out your sort of thoughts for the night. Any last things you want us to think about before we walk out those doors and see what you guys do?
I'm just going to say thank you very much for coming out tonight. I was worried that the panel would outnumber the audience, so you exceeded my expectations.
Let me hear it
Thank
for
you
the
very
crowd,
much.
please. There we go.
We're very energized about what we're doing as developers. We're not just people making the game, we're fans. So it's very important to us to make something that you guys want to play, and we want to play it as well. We value the community. We listen to what you say. We have bubble powers in the game because we listen to our community. Somebody made that up. Dr. Detergent is a real villain in the game. And thank you everybody that came out for it. Again, last plug, my brother's got some cards at the back. If you want to know how to donate to the game and help us build this, that's great. If you want to follow us on social media, see what it looks like, because I didn't have any screenshots, just pick up a card on your way out and find out more.
I was the person that actually set up the panel in the first place. I've dealt with PAX. This is actually panel number 4. I wanted to be able to show that, we've had so many people come up to us and say, well, you're competing. Well, no, we're not. I've got lots of good friends in the Valiance team. I've had many good email exchanges with Casey. I'm friends with Robert from his social media team, I guess is what you call it. And somebody that actually helped with our early work, helped with Ship of Heroes as well, Nicholas, great guy. I was glad to see him picked up there because great work. I wanted to show that we're all here because we love City of Heroes. We're all here because we love video games. We're all here because we love the audience. We've got Heroes on a Spaceship. We've got Future City. We've got Modern City. We're not trying to carve up a small corpse here. We're trying to take a living community. We're trying to grow it. Not everybody that played City of Heroes played the same game, loved the same elements on it. We've got an a la carte buffet here of options.
Play all 3.
Yeah.
Play all 3.
I want everybody, I really do. I want everybody to play all 3. I've backed the Valiance beta. I'm looking forward to the Ship of Heroes Alpha. And, I have played enough City of Titans pre-alpha right now that I could recite every keystroke by balance, and I'm still ticked off that the flight broke this week. But like, we're friends, you know. We work together. You know, we aren't sports teams here trying to get the trophy. We're all on the same side here. And we want to make sure the audience gets what it wants. And we want that audience to be a lot bigger in 5 years. I want that, you know, I want this room to be packed with more people outside ticked off they couldn't get in. So, we're here for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, just want to take the time to thank
you,
all
Nate.
of you all for attending. And, you know, City of Heroes was, you know, probably one of the first games I played where I said, wow, this is something different. This is something that breaks the mold. And I'm sure every single one of you actually kind of felt the same thing when you played that game. And just wanted to echo Nate Downes' sentiment there in that, you know, all three of these panelists are trying to bring to you guys something that could probably be a successor to City of Heroes. Maybe not a replacement, but a successor. Something that we can get into again. And of course, all of these are indie game developers. And I know that there's a stigma when it comes to crowdfunding. I've been dealing with indie developers for years now and helping them grow their projects. And so do take the time to ask them questions individually now while you still have them in the room. And of course, visit their respective websites, take a look at their YouTube videos, take a look at their streams, etc. There are some exciting things that are coming down the pipes from all three of these games that are coming out. And when it comes to indie games, truly, these are passions. These are projects of passion, and they are fueled by, well, the passion of its fans, as well as the passions of these developers. And I just want to again thank again all three of our panelists for their passions of bringing this project, these projects. Thank you. All right. That being said, thank you all, and good night.
And thank you, Nate.
Awesome. Put this together.